Hey, Julian Primeaux, rock and roller, and singer-songwriter, guitar, noodler, harmonica player, steel guitar.
Okay. Extraordinaire.
Maybe I don't know about all that, but yeah, bunch of things.
That was a term that was foreign to me until not too long ago. Noodling. That's what somebody had told me that I was doing when I was playing keyboard, just messing around.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never heard of that. Sounds goofy.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it doesn't sound like noodling, but what I'm doing. But yeah, it's
highly choreographed noodling.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So where were you born?
I was born in Lafayette,
Okay.
Louisiana. There's other Lafayette, so I need to clarify that.
Yeah.
Lafayette, Louisiana, and then grew up on the north side of Lafayette. That's the wrong side of the tracks for a lot of people. And,
Okay.
Yeah, born and raised there, and go all over the place playing. But right now I'm living even a little further north there in Karen Crow's, kind of like a suburb of Lafayette. But yeah.
I've been there before.
Yeah. Okay.
When you started out, were you trying to, be part of the music scene in Lafayette, or did you venture out immediately?
So for me, I started when I was really young. Mm-hmm. So so I started playing guitar when I was 8.
Okay.
And I was on stage before that singing. I think I was like 3, 4, 5 years old. Mm-hmm. I don't remember. I there's a video somewhere of it, but I don't.
Okay.
I don't have actual,
any kind of
memory of it. Yeah, recollection of it. But so I think at that point I wasn't thinking about any of that stuff. But not long after that, I think for me it's like I always loved music, and but I think that real fire started when I was 11.
Okay.
And then I think, at that point it was like, okay, I wanted to, do as much as I can, and if I can see the world playing music, that's that would be a dream. So
did you realize at that young age that it could be a vehicle for such things?
I don't know if I the probability or likelihood. I'm not sure how much I figured that was going to actually happen or not. But I think the idea of it was cool.
Well, sure, yeah.
So,
that's probably the first thing that occurs to anyone, right?
Sure.
Get on stage and melt faces and party.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, for me, I think my maybe it's not even my goals, but it's more so I think my role in music shifted over time, because I think when I was first starting out, I remember I was writing poetry and things like that, and then I was already playing guitar, but and then around probably 11 years old or something, I was writing poetry and getting maybe a little artier, let's just say.
Sure.
And then kind of starting to come up with songs and everything. And then I think my original thought though with all of that was, I think I sort of envisioned myself as more okay, I'll be the songwriter, rhythm guitar player of a band, and there'll be someone else in the front singing and maybe playing lead guitar or whatever. And for me it was the songwriting. That was the thing I really liked doing, and then things just sort of evolved from there. And so and I love what I do. Singing and guitar noodling and
sure.
or whatever. So I love doing those things. So I'm cool with all that. But I think it's what my role in the music thing changed. A little bit or a lot.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. But I think so the goal's somewhat same. I mean, the music business has changed so much from when I was a kid.
Without
like
a doubt.
Starting out in the 90s, it was just very different how all that stuff operated, you know what I mean? And like, you know, so I mean, I was on the younger end of some of that, but like in my brain was still like, you know, the bigger bands, you know, they got a record deal, and you weren't so actively a part of your own business, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Sure,
like,
there was a business side that you weren't involved.
Yeah, you know, and it's like, it seems like a lot of those acts, the artists were kind of left to make the art and do all that side of it, and then there was like business people handling the other things, you know. And nowadays, you know, even the biggest stars, right? Like they're on social media, they're doing things, and there's, you know, it just works very differently. And so,
What would you prefer it be, ideally?
for me, it's the art.
Just the art.
Yeah, like I love, you know, like my happy place. Honestly, I shouldn't be saying this, but like my happy place, it's not good for business for me to say this, but my real happy place is writing the songs and like coming up with an idea alone at home, and like the fact that there was just air, you know, in the room. It's just oxygen, and then like, you know, Keith Richards talks about it's like a lightning bolt coming down, and you know, you're the lightning rod and you're the antenna that takes us in, you know, in, and other people say different things but similar, and it's just like, it's like magic or something, you know, and just something manifests, and where there was just air, now there's a song.
Yeah.
And so I love, that's my favorite part, like where there was nothing, now then there's a spark of an idea, and then it becomes this thing. And you know, sometimes, at least for me, I don't always even feel like I'm writing something. I'm just there, and it's just, this thing is happening. You know what I mean? And I know it's not a song that existed. I'm not ripping off anybody. I'm not stealing from anybody. It, you know, it's nothing like that. It's just like, but this thing just manifests, and it, you know, whether people love it or hate it, it doesn't even really matter to me in a way. It's just like, I love that feeling of, in that moment when this thing is happening, and it's like I'm a vessel for this other thing that's you know, just kind of channeling through, and you know, like that's my favorite part, even more than playing the live shows and stuff. And I do love playing live, so I'm not, that's the bad business part. I'm not supposed to say. A lot of people, musicians, talk about like they love being on stage and that's their favorite thing, and for me that's like probably my second or third favorite part. I think the first part is the writing, that initial thing coming down and manifesting itself, and then being with like a group of musicians, and then getting to hear that thing kind of like come to life and be birthed.
Sure.
You know, and for me, like songs, every song I've ever written since I was 11 years old, to me it's like they're all my children. They're like my babies, and some of them are ugly, some of them are cuter, some are smart, some are dumb. You know, this one's got some birth defects, but you know, this one's gifted, maybe, I don't know. But like, they all have their thing, but to me it's like each one is like my baby, and I love them all, you know, for one reason or another, and they mean something to me, and so, you know, it's like, and then, you know, it's sort of like they're in the womb or something when I'm by myself and I'm starting, you know, come up with the idea or however it comes down, manifestation. But then being in a room with other musicians, and then like that being fleshed out, you know, that's like kind of like the birth. It's like, you know, the baby's coming out
into existence,
and and it's like, okay, it's alive, you know. And because sometimes you can hear things, like I hear symphonies in my head, you know, with these songs, and these ideas come to me, and then it's like, but then sometimes it's like when you're in reality and then you try to make it work with a group of musicians, it doesn't always come out how you envision it, you know. And it's the rough part. It's hard, you know.
But it's funny to hear you, it's a struggle to describe the process, even though it seems so simplistic, like it just happens naturally, but it's hard to put into words. And it's funny to me how people, like, they personify the muse as, you know, a goddess or something. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, for sure.
They try to assimilate real world features to something that is ethereal. It's a ghost. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
right. And it's like you don't know when it's gonna happen, when it's gonna, you know what I mean? Like there have been times where, for me anyways, it's like, you know, I'm at home and, you know, I'm playing acoustic guitar and I'm not even really thinking about what I'm doing. I'm just kind of playing whatever, you know, and then like my hand could just make a mistake that was like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that's weird. And then it's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then, okay, what did I do? And then, you know, and then other times I could be driving and then just like a line, you know, like more like poetry or something comes into my brain, or like a concept of something. And
what do you do at that moment? How do you capture when you're in the midst of doing other things?
right, exactly. And, you know, and it's easier now in the modern era where, you know, you have a smartphone and you can record right there on the spot. But, you know, back in the day, you couldn't do that. And, you know, I read a lot about other songwriters. And as a kid, I grew up on a dead-end street. Mm-hmm. Bayou was on one side, and in a trailer across from the bayou. So there's no houses on that side. And so it wasn't a lot of people or whatever. And so I was an avid reader. I was always reading stuff, and I, you know, read books and music magazines. If I had CDs or cassettes or whatever, I'd be reading all the liner notes and stuff. And I would read, you know, I'd get like a guitar magazine and I would read it, the whole thing. Bands I liked, didn't like,
Sure.
whatever. Bands I never heard before, hearing these people talk about their albums and stuff, and songwriters, whatever it might be. And then I'd read it multiple times just because whatever, there wasn't a lot to do back then. There was no internet or whatever. And so I didn't have a TV or whatever. So like, you know, I'd read this stuff as a kid, and, you know, and just reading these different things about different songwriters. And something I read once, Elvis Costello said, it's about, which was an interesting concept. It was like, he was saying, if you come up with something and you don't remember it the next day when you wake up, it wasn't worth remembering. Now, I don't know if I even agree or not, but the idea of that is interesting to me, that's his take on it, you know. And so, but, you know, but that also changes, I think, like the modern world where you have an iPhone or an Android, and you come up with an idea, you can press record and you can instantly do the idea. Whereas back in the day, that wasn't, you know, an option. And, you know, you can write down words, but, you know, music is a different thing. And I mean, if you can read music and you can do notation, you can write things out. But I think most, you know, songwriters and guitar players and stuff, you know, people who came up in garage bands, they don't have the that music school background, you know, necessarily to understand how to do all that, you know. I mean, even with the Beatles, I read a thing early on, this is before the Beatles were famous, there was a ton of songs they had, and it was all written down on paper, you know, by hand. Mm-hmm. And a maid came in and didn't understand what it was and just threw out all the stuff. And there's like tons and tons and tons of early Beatles songs that were lost. It never got recorded.
Never came to be.
Yeah. And, you know, and like, you know, but you weren't, it wasn't as, recording wasn't as accessible back then, you know? And so stuff like that's interesting to me, you know? And so like the idea of you can record it now and then there's no way you can forget it because you have it recorded. But is that as good of an idea as something that maybe you would have come up with a month before, and that thing was just an earworm that you couldn't forget?
I mean,
you know?
Not according to Elvis Costello, right?
That's what I'm saying.
He's basically saying, you know, if it didn't stick, then it was never good in the first place.
Right.
But I would argue differently, because I've had song ideas come up and I'll whistle it into my phone or something and then forget about it because I was able to capture it, and then maybe 2, 3, 4 months later I'll have an idea and I'll whistle it in my phone, and then while I'm scrolling through my phone 2 more months later I'll realize it's the same damn tune.
Right.
Damn, almost, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like that's got to be something because
Right.
it keeps resurfacing, you know.
Yeah.
So you described the environment in which you grew up, and I guess I could see how it worked for you to be kind of an introvert and more attuned to writing and reading and things of that nature, because I was going to ask if that was a retreat of sorts from typical childhood exploits. I mean, kids 11 years old are usually trying to, you know, burn a caterpillar with a magnifying glass or something, you know.
Right.
But you're reading books cover to cover and writing music. So I mean, that's different. Did you see the contrast, or was there just not enough children around to really notice that wasn't the norm?
Yeah, I mean, well, I went to public school, so I was around kids at school. You know, it wasn't like homeschooled, but the thing is, where I lived for a period of time as a kid, and we lived there, then we moved away for maybe like 2 years or something like that, then we moved back. It was in between the north side of Lafayette and Breaux Bridge, Louisiana.
Okay.
And it's this one, like I said, one dead-end road alongside the bayou, and it was in neither Lafayette or St. Martin Parish. So like Lafayette Parish ended, and then after that, then there was this street, and then there was St. Martin Parish.
Everybody was claiming
which is Breaux
you.
Bridge. Yeah, it was like, so I think some of the people around there call it Tibois, which means little woods.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's like, you know, it was just like, you know, pretty narrow, windy road, just, you know, wrapped along the bayou.
Yeah.
Bayou on this side. On the other side of the bayou was just a pasture with cows, and sometimes you see the cows at the bayou, and on the edge of it, and then you know, and then the side we lived on, you know, behind the trailer we lived, there was basically just a swamp, you know, and you know, and Spanish moss, you know, trees and everything, and you know, and you go further back there, and then, you know, have the little like cypress coming out the ground, yeah, and all that, and so I mean, you know, sometimes we go mess around back there. I have a younger brother, and we go mess around, but there was no other kids on the street or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Most of the other people on the street were all old, and so you know, you know, at school during the day, hanging out with you know, classmates or whatever, and then at home, that's kind of what it was. And we, you know, this was pre-internet. We didn't have, if you know the box, it was like this, like they would have like music videos on it. We get that like scrambled, but we couldn't get any other stations and stuff. So it'd be watching old VHS tapes, and you know, or you know, listening to music, and you know what I mean. And so, you know, I be playing acoustic guitar, and that's what I started on, and just, you know, coming up with things, and you know, it's different, and I do think that puts your brain in a different space.
Absolutely.
Than like the modern world, which I'm not hating on, but it's just very different, where we're so overloaded with just information, you know what I mean?
Truly.
And we're, you know, you're kind of like multitasking all the time, you know, and but it divides your attention and your focus, you know, and so it's like out there is very quiet, and
you can focus and concentrate.
You can focus, and you know, and it just kind of, you know, it just puts your attention at a different level, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we'll do that, and then you know, and then on the weekends, you know, I had buddies and stuff, and we were in a band, and you know, we'd play or whatever, and then that kind of grew and grew more, you know, and then but you know, it was and then that same trailer eventually became, when like me and my brother and my mom moved out, that became basically our like band's like jam space.
Really?
Yeah, because my aunt and uncle, they had owned the trailer when we were living in it, and so, and their sons, my cousin, were 5 weeks apart, and so we were. He was the drummer, I was the guitar player,
Gotcha.
and that's kind of how it. And then a buddy of mine at school, he was the bass player, and that's kind of how all that really started, and we're playing all the time, and and but we were, one of the things about it that was different than, and I realized that a few years later, because this was middle school kind of age, and my dad was a musician, bass player's dad was a musician, and their stuff was doing like the 3-4 hour gigs.
Okay.
Like the bass player's dad was a drummer in like a swamp pop band. Mm-hmm. My dad was like singer, harmonica player in blues bands and stuff. And so, we thought that's what you needed to do, even being like an alternative band or a rock band, or you know what I mean, like at that age.
What specifically though? Like
that you had to have like,
or?
well, no, like that you had to have like 3 or 4 hours of material.
Gotcha.
So we would just learn everything that we could, and so it was like, okay, somebody show us how to play The Cure's Just Like Heaven. Okay, we're gonna learn that. Oh, but then this person taught us how to play, or we learned play that funky music. Okay, we're gonna play that. Oh, and then this is a White Zombie song. Okay, we're gonna learn that. But then, here's a.
In what set did this occur?
yeah. But it's like it didn't even matter. It's like it was just like, okay, we're just learning. It was like quantity of material,
sure,
over quantity or over quality. I'm gonna say.
Well, I mean, that's the mission of every kid.
Right. So, but it was kind of cool in a way, because it was like we were learning, like Hendrix and CCR songs, and then also learning Nirvana, you know what I mean, or Alice in Chains or something, and then also, like some 70s funk and disco songs, and some of it where it really wasn't even about whether we even liked it or not. I hate to say, you know what I mean, or we all have our preferences, but it was just like, okay, and then, but later on in life, I think that was like beneficial, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. You want the variety. I get that. What were your ideals going into that? I guess you would say, like, what was the end goal? It was to get 3 or 4 hours more worth of material and then get gigs.
Yeah, to go play gigs, and then so we would spend. But I think we spent way more time practicing and prepping for that than a lot of other people were doing. And on our end of town, though, there wasn't a lot of other kids trying to play guitar and bass and drums and stuff. So we were pretty limited, and and so it kind of just started that way. And then by the time, let's say we got to we would play some like school talent shows and like parties for some girl that we know, and she's we're like whatever 13 years old, and this 13-year-old girl we know have her birthday party. We're gonna go play whatever, and we're gonna go play 3 or 4 hours or whatever. And then it wasn't until high school we started doing shows with other high school bands, and they're like punk bands or metal bands or whatever, and we were doing some punk and metal stuff by then too. But it was like, you guys only have like 30 minutes of material or 45 minutes, and like we didn't know that was like you could do that. You understand what I mean? Like, because like
where was the disconnect though between what you and your bassist parents were doing and what these kids were doing? Was because you mentioned swamp pop, so I mean were they doing mainly covers? Because I mean that's typically the set of a cover band. A cover band is going to be expected to run 3 or 4 hours, whereas an original band, not so much.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, so for us, I guess we just didn't really know that like there was the possibility of like doing a show with other bands.
Gotcha.
And you divide up the night.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so, and the other thing was, it was like, we were playing together. We just, it was sort of like there wasn't anyone else pretty much. Like there was almost no other musicians in our area of town. Mm. And, this is before we can drive or whatever. So like, and whereas, the other side of town, the other schools, there's probably 15 or 20 guitar players, and 10 drummers, and
sure.
And so that one school might have multiple bands, whereas like my middle school, we were the only band. There was no one else that was in a band really in our middle school, and even then my cousin who was the drummer, he didn't even go to the same school as us, and like, and that was like the closest thing to having, a band besides, concert, school band stuff, which I was into. I was played trumpet and stuff in that, but like, so it was, we were isolated, I guess is my point. Whereas these other bands, okay, these guys are a band, and then this is a band, and they're all going to the same school, and they can kind of talk about, okay, let's do a show together, and your band has 7 or 8 songs you can play. Okay, we have 7 or 8. Whereas like, we were started, I think, younger than those guys, but we already probably had like 40 or 50 songs that we could do, but we just thought that's what you had to do because that's what our dads did. When our dads were playing gigs, they were the only band all night. It wasn't multiple, band thing. And
not only that, I mean, the isolation gave way to just do it all.
Right.
I recall, you mentioned Nirvana earlier. I recall something about Kurt talking about just practice. That was a big thing of his. But I mean, you look up into Seattle, and it's shit weather, and it's a logger town. Like, there's not a whole lot going on. So the isolation, it kind of nurtures the creativity to a degree,
Yeah.
You said you were writing a bunch of songs. That was your mainstay. You were really into writing songs at an early age. How well were you able to manifest those songs back then using the band that you had at that time?
Well, that was a little different, I think, because like we were all writing, and then we kind of like everybody would jump in and sort of, you know what I mean? Like, okay, I have this idea, you have this idea, and then kind of like sort of flesh it out. And but that stuff, I think early on, some of it was, I don't know. It's like different type of songwriting almost, where it's like some of it was more like riffs and stuff like that based, and then it's sort of a different like approach to songwriting. And then whereas like now, basically like I write everything by myself, and then I bring in the guys, and then flesh it out. And
so back then there was more contributors to the end result.
And being in bands and stuff, and then and then later on I was in other bands where it's like, okay, I wrote some songs and the bass player wrote some songs, and this other guy in the band wrote some songs, and then there might be some things we co-wrote together because like, okay, this guy's got lyrics but he needs music. Well, all right, I have some music that I hadn't put words to yet. Okay, and then we could kind of like finish things out that way. But there was a little more collaborative, which I like doing as well. But it, some of these things just sort of like, kind of evolve over time, and and so, I mean, it's not like a right or wrong way. And I like, I love being in a band. Like, that's my thing. I've always loved being in a band, and what I do now, and I do it full time for a living. It's under my name, but I love being in a band. I love being a member of a band, and that's really like kind of going back to one of the first questions you're asking about, like my goal. I think that was like part of it. Is like, I'll be in a band. Sure. It's not going to be my name up there.
Well, you always saw yourself in that light. Yeah. No matter what your role was.
Right.
And even though your role has changed over time, you're still able to achieve that.
Yeah. So I like, I love the idea of being in a band. To me, it's just like one of the coolest things. It's just like, it's like a brotherhood. It's a gang. If you're in the right band with the right guys,
Sure.
Or girls, but or anything else.
Yeah.
You are. And that's cool. And I just, I dig all that, and so, I like the songwriting, I like the creative part about it, and, but I mean, like I said, there've been other bands I've been in where, this guy wrote a song or whatever, or I backed up artists, like playing guitar for people, and, or bass or other instruments for people. And like, I also love doing that stuff too. It's, it's just music, I guess. I'm just super passionate about music.
Sure.
And that's, my first love,
The music that you were writing back then, has the style changed over time?
Yeah, definitely.
I use the word genre, but
Yeah.
basically a genre-based question for the audience,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, so I mean, I think like early on, we're kind of like, like I said, I would write poetry and stuff, and then, and then there would be things where it's like, okay, here's like kind of like a riff sort of a thing, and, and then, okay, and, show it to everybody, or, and then it kind of grows from there, and then, oh, this guy's got this part, and then you kind of start like piecemealing, Frankensteining something that, becomes a song. And then, and that stuff was maybe, let's say, more alternative, like, I don't want to say the word grunge, but let's say kind of in that ballpark of things,
Sure.
And then, things would evolve, and I maybe because we were playing all sorts of different styles of music, and then, and then I just love so much different types of stuff. So it's like, okay, I'm going to try writing some kind of, because like someone I love is Van Morrison. I'm a huge Van Morrison fan since I was a little kid, and before writing songs or whatever, or and so something like that. It's like, okay, try to write something. And like I said, I mean, the stuff manifests itself a lot of times, but it's sort of like something comes in. It's like, oh, there's something that sounds like it's almost kind of like a 70s Van Morrison type of vibe, and it's in the ether or something. I don't know. And then, you know what I mean? And then something kind of goes that way, or, and then, and then getting into like heavier stuff like metal, to like a lot of 80s, like thrash stuff. And then,
really?
Yeah. And then so I had a band when I was in high school, early college, and that's what we did. It was called Sanity's Mask. And like that stuff was a lot of people would say it was like Iron Maiden meets Slayer. So it was like 80s thrash, but we'd have like the guitar harmonies and stuff like that, like like Iron Maiden and stuff. And
it was what? Sanity's Mask?
Sanity's Mask, okay. Yeah. And so, I mean, I love doing that band, and that was kind of like me evolving more as a songwriter, and you know what I mean? And then, but we'd also have some ballads and some like, more atmospheric, moodier stuff kind of too in there that was, different, and, and then just like kind of growing with that. But I would also, be writing songs at home, on acoustic. I mean, pretty much everything would be written on acoustic, even like the thrash stuff was on acoustic. That's basically all I would play at home, would just be acoustic guitar, and I would write everything on that. And then, and like to me, it's like if I could play this thrash riff on acoustic guitar and it sounded cool, then it'll sound even more awesome.
It's fair.
On electric with the band, and everything. And so, it kind of started like that, but then I would also write these like ballads and like, more sensitive, introspective songs. And then I was playing in jazz band in high school, playing guitar, and then, and then I'd come up with stuff that's kind of jazzy or kind of this or that, and all sorts of different things,
When it comes time to assemble an album, how do you corral all of that? I mean, there's got to be a lot that's left out just basically because they don't fit with one another, huh?
Yeah, and I mean, I think some people think some of the earlier records of mine under my name, or maybe they're a little, there's a lot of different styles to it, and even the latest record kind of has that too, maybe to a certain extent, but but I mean, for me, it's like the Beatles are something that like, even outside of just like whatever, you think of the Beatles or your opinion of the Beatles, one of the things that I thought was cool was like, the Beatles could have, like something that sounds like an old vaudeville kind of ragtime kind of song, and then they could have something like Helter Skelter on the same record, and it's like a proto metal song, and it's like I think that stuff's cool, and I like the going out there on a limb artistically, and I like when bands do that kind of stuff, and maybe I have a shorter attention span for certain things, you know what I mean? But it's like, but I like when bands or artists can do that kind of thing, and you know what I mean? And they haven't, they go different places with it, and it's not the same thing every time,
Well, that's what I was about to say. I mean, the antithesis is just a broken record. The same thing all the time, and that's like the end. That spells the end for a band,
Right.
And that can be disappointing.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
And I don't think that you would be disappointed if your next album doesn't sound like the last album. That might have some fans that get disappointed, but I mean, after all, it's not quite about them. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Your expression is to be interpreted by a variety of people.
Right.
So, and I think it's powerful that you started off playing so many different styles of music, because it allowed you to choose over time your own vein, and it incorporates some of these varieties into that vein, and that's how you bring something new to the table,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, it's like, if people enjoy like albums that I put out, I am super grateful for that, and I really, really love that.
Hey, have you heard about Neworleansmusicians.com? It's a place where articles, music videos, interviews, and streaming music from Louisiana musicians can be found. Fans can join free. Music business professionals can join free too. And Louisiana musicians can join for free as well. It's also the place where Louisiana bands go to network and get free promotion. We've definitely got plenty, like this band. Check them out.
But at the same time, I'm sounding like a jerk, but I'm kind of selfish about the about it from a certain perspective. That's like, I write, or I put out what I want to put out, and I mean, there's stuff that I put out that, let's say, the budget wasn't there production wise, you know what I mean? And it's like, it doesn't sound, the sound quality is not how I envisioned it in my head, you know what I mean, when I came up with it, or things like that. And I've had some bad luck with production things, I would say, but the songs that I put out are the songs I wanted to put out,
Sure.
And I know that some of them, I know there's some, there's some fans that they love the bluesier stuff, and for them it's like, whoa, what's this weird shit over here?
Yeah.
And then there's other fans that are like, man, I love all that weird stuff. The blues stuff, okay, whatever. And then, there's other ones that like, the ballads or the heavier songs, and but I kind of think that's cool, and I mean, but also at the same time, I think some of those people, or most of them, I do think initially they might come in as a fan of some of the songs, and then over time they go, actually, no, you know what, these other ones, like, I get it now, and I love it, and they grow, on you, and so like, I love that. And there's people that we just finished a tour, started in Memphis and went through Wisconsin and came back down, and then someone messaged me, they bought a CD at the show, and then they messaged me a couple days later, a week later, and and they're telling me how much like the album means to them, and they've been having a tough time helping them get through some things. And then they reference one of the songs, and like, that's not even one of the songs that like we played at the show, you know what I mean? And that's like, it was on the album, and they've been listening to one of the albums we have 5 albums out right now. And it's like, saying that's helping them get through some things, but we didn't play that song at the show, so that's not why they bought the album, for that song, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And it was, whatever other songs we were doing at the show that enticed them to buy that particular album. But so it's like, I love stuff like that, that really means a lot to me, and I think that's super cool, so I mean, and I have that with music, right? Like, just because I'm a big fan of music. Outside of me playing music, I'm a huge fan of other artists and other bands. And so, like, there's bands like that I get into, and I still, you know, check out new bands or new to me bands, you know, and and I deep dive into, you know, their like discographies and you know, and sometimes like, okay, the initial song that maybe that I liked and wanted to investigate and check them out more, in the end is not even one of my favorite songs.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, stuff like that is really cool to me too, you know? And so
I've enjoyed that with streaming. I can go find a band, I'll discover a band or hear a song I like about them, but I'm able to go back to their first album and see how they started out, you know?
Yeah.
And it's funny because if you, like you were talking about grunge earlier, if the band's got that hint of grunge to it, and they were around in the 90s, the early 90s, then that's probably the album where they shine the most, you know what I'm saying? Because they really hit their mark during that era. So that's super cool to me, you know, to be able to go digging through all these different bands. And like coming up, I wasn't really a fan of thrash or punk, you know? So with streaming, I've been able to go find these bands. You know, if you watch a music documentary, they're gonna name like 50 bands, and I've done it before. I'll sit there with my phone and type down all the names because it's stuff that maybe I don't recognize in a genre that I didn't really exploit as a child. So now I'm able to, we have access to all of this, I'm able to go find these bands and hear them at their height, you know, on the tip of a documentary.
Right.
Somebody speaking their mind in a documentary. So I mean, that's invaluable to me. So I've been able to I guess rediscover for the first time, if you want to say, you know, some of these bands, and it's wonderful because your tastes change over time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and you know, yeah, my tastes have evolved a lot over time, and I'm, you know, there's people who talk about like, oh, what's, you know, guilty pleasure music or whatever that you have. I have no guilty pleasure with music. Like, you know, there's some cheesy 80s stuff I love, and then there's some like super bizarro, weird, obscure stuff that I also love, and I'm not ashamed of any of it. But I'm also someone who like, my tastes have grown and grown more over time, but there's not really anything that I liked as a kid that I'm like, oh my God, I was stupid, and I think that sucks now. I'm someone who like,
that's a tough one, dude, because some of the poppy stuff that was like almost a fad, and not really making its mark on the music world. Right. It didn't really add much. it just, you couldn't get it out of your goddamn head. So it, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it was on the radio all the time. So I mean, maybe some of those from my early teens, I guess. I might cite some of those, but yeah, I hear you, man. In general, you hold them dear to you, especially because a lot of those will earmark an era in your life.
Yeah, it's
bring
nostalgia,
back,
right?
Yeah, they bring back that stuff for you.
Right.
So when you first were able to get out and play in public, not at like little house parties and stuff, what was the message? What was the overall feel of the music?
Like, you mean style-wise, or kind of?
I guess your style. I mean, you're not one of those artists that's like politically motivated. There's no like Peter Tosh message in there somewhere.
No, not really.
But in general, you might have had a feeling like the features of bayous and such, or maybe intrinsic thoughts because you were thinking a lot on your own. Do you know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
What was coming through?
Right. I mean, I think for me it was like, you know, in like my area of Louisiana growing up, I mean, like the two biggest things musically were like Cajun and Zydeco music in that area. And you know, and for me, those weren't like, you know, I would hear it all the time, but it wasn't like those were like my main influences or anything like that.
They were not. They were
not. No, like, you know. Now, when I got into high school, I did start playing in a Zydeco band. And that's a whole other like realm of things. You know, but like I was literally playing in a Zydeco band and I was in a metal band at the same time. And so sometimes I'd have gigs with both on the same day.
Nice.
And like, 17 or whatever, and like, I had a Zydeco gig earlier, and then I left the Zydeco gig to go to like a punk rock metal dive bar, you know what I mean? And I'm not even old enough to get in, and I'm on stage, playing some, metal. So, I mean, I always, did weird, diverse things like that, and then be in the jazz band at school on Monday, and...
did anything creep? Did they kind of cross-pollinate at
Oh,
any
yeah,
point?
big time, yeah.
I mean, you can almost not help that, right?
Oh, yeah, so, I mean, it was like, it's like incorporating all these things, and, and some of it was kind of like music nerd stuff where it's like music theory or whatever kind of too, but some of it is like, okay, like, man, can you throw in some rockabilly licks in Zydeco? All right, okay. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, this worked.
That's
this was
fun,
cool.
though, right?
Yeah, and it's fun and exploring and trying things out, and then, and I mean, the same thing like with, doing, let's say like blues stuff. I'd be, playing blues, and like sometimes I'd like fill in with, my dad's band or something, and it's like, all right, I'm playing blues, and okay, can I throw in these little minor scale metal licks in there? You know what I mean? Or, you know what I mean? And it's just like trying to figure out these things. Or, okay, we're doing a blues song, okay, typical blues song, but all right, let's see if I can throw in some like surf rock guitar thing on top, some like Dig Dale or something, and and things like that. And I'll be honest, it didn't always work, and should I have tried it on the gig? That's a very that's a very good argument on whether I probably shouldn't have done that. But I mean, I try to scale it, read the room on it. But
I was about to say, it's the best litmus. Like, it's going to show you immediately.
Yeah. And so, I like doing those kind of things, and then kind of trying to figure it out, and like, okay, what works and what doesn't work, and how to incorporate certain things. And to me, it's like, the audience might not care, but if I can like throw in some other kind of genre in and it works well, and it's like, it's seamless.
Yeah.
That's like, a pat on the back, that I'm going to do to myself later or something, you know what I mean? And
because you were able to meld it together, unnoticeably, I suppose.
Yeah, so it's like, if I can throw in some little jazz lick in the middle of I don't know, let's say like a dark, spooky swamp blues song, then it's like, okay, that's cool, you know what I mean? And I and I think it makes it a little bit more unique, and
absolutely,
puts my own signature stamp on things. And then over time doing that stuff, then it's kind of like learning more and more, like, okay, I like this, but I really love this, and then kind of honing in on that, and and sort of magnifying that thing, or okay, that's cool, what if I go even further with it, what I mean?
Exploit it a little more. It starts something.
And mixing things together, like okay, like I love Tom Waits, and it's like, okay, what if you did like some Tom Waits isms in the middle of like this song that's already leaning in more of a punk direction?
Sure.
Okay, what happens? Okay.
I don't know if you would say it happens seldom or frequently, but I think that was Pious, and I can't believe I'm remembering this because I interviewed them like 2 or 3 years ago, but they redid a Tom Waits song because they were just standing around during practice, and somebody suggested it, and there was a lot of no's, but they still tried it out, and it turned out to be pretty cool. I like the idea of melding genres because it's forcing you to kind of, I guess, rearrange or expand upon what your ideals of a genre are, and curse genres in general anyway, because and it's funny, over time, these playlists, these curated playlists on streaming services, they're not even named by genre anymore. They're named by mood or something. Because it's kind of like, it's ambivalent now. It's like, it doesn't matter what the genre is. Do you want to just hear the same shit over and over again?
Right.
You know, or do you want something to kind of suit your, I guess, environment, or your personality, if you're an explorer, you know?
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, well, it's like with blues, you know, which is the, like, you know, it's like, okay, what is blues to you and what is blues to someone else can be very different, you know? Like some people, blues is, you know, an old guy sitting in Mississippi, you know what I mean, with an acoustic guitar on a porch, you know, with a slide, you know, like a bottle on his finger, you know? And then for someone else, blues is like a 20-minute guitar solo, you know what I mean, wheedly dee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the band just keeps playing the same thing over and over again in a loop, you know? And, you know, and I'm not saying one's right or wrong, but they're just very different things, you know? But I do think emotionally, for me, they hit me very different. You know what I mean? Those two different things, you know?
Sure.
And, you know, the Chicago blues, and there's like Mississippi blues, and then you got the Texas stuff, like, you know, Stevie Ray Vaughan or something. And that's, you know, to me, that's very different than Robert Johnson, you know, in the, you know, 20s or 30s or something like that. And, you know, or same way with metal music, you know, it's like new metal is a whole different thing than Black Sabbath to me,
Sure.
you know, and I know what I prefer, but like, you know, it's sort of like, that's where it's difficult. And you have subgenres and stuff, but sometimes it's difficult, and there's other things that don't fit into that. You know, people ask me what, like, you know, my band is, and it's like, man, it's hard to say, you know.
Sure.
And we're able to, you know, luckily, I mean, with the material we have and the songs and everything, and like, you know, like I said, we just finished a tour, and we did like some blues festivals in Wisconsin. And so it's like, okay, it's a blues festival. We need to, you know, keep it to just the blues stuff, and we're able to do all that. But like, you know, the next day, you know, we go and do a festival also in Wisconsin, and that was more of a, to me, kind of more like a rock show. And we didn't do as much of the blues stuff, and you know, but it's just sort of, you know, so if I say we're a blues band, I feel like that's really not accurate. And if I say we're, you
kind
know,
of pigeonholes you.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like speaking in terms of genres, because it does essentially pigeonhole an artist.
yeah.
But do you augment your set list according to the event that you're playing? What'd you say?
Yeah. So it's like, you know, so it's like, okay, if it's going to be a blues festival, you know, I mean, then, you know, like, you know, okay, let me put it like this. I know some musicians, right, and their view is kind of more like, let's say like a punk rock metal band view, and I've been in those kind of bands, and it's sort of like, man, this is what we do, and this is it, and, you know, screw anybody who, like, they're not down with like our approach to it, you know what I mean, and sort of like, you know what I mean, and it's like anti-commercial maybe, and it's this and that, and I totally get that view, you know. And then I know the other bands that it's all about, like, you know, to be honest, there are some bands I know, and, you know, money is the number one factor for them, and it's just like, okay, whatever, we're a variety band, and we'll do whatever, whoever's paying us the most money that day, that's where we'll be, and we'll do whatever you want. And they don't really maybe have the same sort of passion for it, you know.
Yeah.
I understand both, and I can respect both in their own ways. I can, like, respect that really strong artistic integrity, and like sticking to your core values and like sticking to your guns. I can totally respect that. And then I can also respect that like workman-like behavior of the other side, and sort of, you know what I mean, like, and it's a job or it's a business. I understand that, you know. For me, it's like I sort of have an approach that's sort of neither, which is like, I mean, I do like to have the artistic integrity, of course, but what I mean is, for me, right, like, to go and, okay, we're going to go do a blues festival, that's where I let more of my like musician side kick in and go like, okay, cool, I like the challenge. And like of, okay, you know, we need to just go and do a full blues set for this festival, which we can totally do. But you know, like I like to be challenged, and you know, in the same way, like we used to do a cover, for example, of a Roy Orbison song called "Crying," and it's a beautiful song, and it's a very difficult song to sing. For me, I like the challenge of it. It's like, okay, can I sing this song?
Yeah.
And it's very operatic, and it's wide range. And like for me, I view it as like, you know, I like the challenge of that. And I picked the song. No one told me to learn the song. So it's not like we need to learn it for some, you know,
it wasn't
what I mean?
an obligation.
No, nothing like that. I just love the song. And for me, it's like, I like the challenge of like, all right, can I sing this song? Can I sing it well? Can I do all of that? And, you know what I mean? And to me, that helps me grow as a musician, and it helps me grow as an artist, because then like if I have that, you know, that's like another trick up my sleeve. And
well, I was about to say, it's not too far off from how you came up.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so like for me, it's not necessarily this way or that way, because sometimes as much, and like I said, I cannot stress how much I respect the like sticking to your values and the artistic integrity, but sometimes those guys get boxed in by those same values, right?
Boxing themselves.
And sort of like, man, we're this, you know, and you know, like we're a punk band, and this is how, you know, you operate in a punk band. Whereas like for me, you know, sometimes it's like, okay, I'd rather not be pigeonholed like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like to me, it's like a good song is a good song. So it's like if I write something that is bluesier, then it's like, okay, cool. And I get, you know, trying to make an album flow. I understand all that kind of stuff, you know, and all that. But, you know, it's sort of like, it kind of goes back to the manifestation of the songs, where it's just like, you know, to me, I try not to tell the song what it is. I just let the song be what it is.
At a certain point, you can't, right?
Yeah. And so it's like, if it comes down from the heavens or it comes up from hell and it's you know what I mean, it's a heavy, dark song, then to me that's the muse, and that's what it is, you know?
Yeah.
And then if it's something is, you know, more light and breezy, then that's what that is, you know? And if I try to make this light, breezy thing, and I try to make it something that it's not, and it doesn't want to be that thing, you know what I mean? Then it's like, because I am trying to box myself into this certain paradigm, then, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the song. You know what I mean? And so like for me, it's sort of, you know, it's not as clear cut as either one of those other ways some people view it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you had mentioned earlier about the fans and their reception of your music, and I don't believe you were referencing live shows so much. Mm-hmm. How do you gauge that? What's your ruler for that? How do you know when fans are really into that last album? You just strictly looking at album sales numbers, or are you getting feedback directly?
Well, see, you know, like what we do on the side stage, we have an applause meter. No, no, but like no, you know, it's like, you know, it's very interesting. Like, and I would say for like my band in particular, because like I was saying, I've played in a lot of bands, like bands, you know, the blah blah blahs, whatever it may be called, and then I've also backed up a lot of other artists, you know, playing, you know, being someone's lead guitar player or whatever it might be.
Sure.
And so it's like, you know, another thing I should say, I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I'm always just dead sober, and I have no judgment on that for anybody else. Like, totally cool.
Right.
But one of the advantages that's given me is like, I'm always totally sober, looking at the audience's perspective. Mm-hmm. So like, you know, I can, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing really clouding my
You're just hyper aware.
yeah, you know, so it's like I can see when they're digging something and when they're not. And to me, part of my job on stage is to like be assessing all of this, you know what I mean? And like, okay, what's working, what's not working, you know? And sometimes it's good, I think, to pivot. And like, you can have a set list, okay, cool. But man, like, if they're not digging this thing, you can stick to that. But like, to me, I mean, what we do is mostly just original stuff anyways. Or we tour in Europe, it's all the originals. And like, for me, like I said, they're all my babies and I love all the songs. And so it's like, if we go play somewhere and I feel like, you know, man, like, this is like, it's a small, intimate kind of room and it's more of a listening crowd, you know, instead of doing the like loud rock and roll songs, okay, that's fine. Like, I'll focus on the more intimate singer-songwriter songs where, you know what I mean, where people can hang on every word more, you know, and the singing is kind of more to the forefront and it's not about, you know, electric guitar stuff. And like, you know, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying about like pigeonholing yourself this way or that way. For me, it's like, okay, cool, it's that kind of show tonight, that's what we're doing. And then like, it's like challenge accepted. Okay, let's go and do that and let's do the best possible job we can for that. And to me, it, you know, it just makes more sense if to be able to pivot and do that in that show, you know, and it's just read the room. And you know, and then there's other nights and other shows where it's like, okay, man, loud, dirty rock and roll, you know, like that's the thing. And they're loving it, and we're doing more of those songs of mine, you know, and I love doing that. So it's like, it's not necessarily for me like, oh man, I'm pissed off because we can't do these rock songs. It's, you know what I mean? To me, it's like, okay, cool. Like,
you know, the variety, I'm sure it helps.
Yeah, you know.
You've mentioned it here and there a bit while we've been speaking about festivals and things. I was wondering maybe you could cite a few of the locations and places that you've performed.
Okay, so like starting off in like Louisiana, we've done festivals like French Quarter Fest, Festival International, Baton Rouge Blues Fest. We're going to be doing Bluesberry later this year. That's in the North Shore in Covington. Mudbug Madness in Shreveport. I mean, tons of festivals all over. And then nationally, yeah, we just did some festivals in Wisconsin, yeah, man, I don't know, we go all over doing festivals. It's hard. I've been doing it a long time. It's hard to remember everything. And then and then we tour in Europe, and you know, we do festivals out there, and a lot of times touring we play in like France, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, Switzerland, Czech Republic, and yeah, go a bunch of places out there.
It's a lot, man.
Yeah, and you know, different parts of the country. I mean, we just finished up a tour, like that tour was like Memphis, Jonesboro, Arkansas, Chicago, some festivals and stuff in Wisconsin and St. Louis, and then coming up we're going to do another tour. It's like Southeast, like starting in Louisiana and Mississippi, Florida, and then some more shows in like northern Mississippi and stuff. And you know, so, and we got some more festivals coming up later in the year. Some of them haven't been announced yet, and some have, but yeah, and so yeah, you know, a bunch of different festivals, and stay busy. You know, I do it for a living full time, so yeah,
that's awesome, man. How do you keep up? How do you know where you're going to be from one day to the next? You had mentioned earlier kind of differentiating between the creative side and the business side. Is there a machine behind Julian Primeaux, or is everything being handled by you? How do you arrange these things?
Right now, basically, it's all being handled by me. So I'm do all the booking, management, you know, the driver, the roadie,
Yeah.
tech, kind of doing everything, and then someone helps me out with some of the social media stuff, but most of it, it's me doing everything, and when we've had different people from time to time doing some stuff with us, but right now currently it's like I'm basically I'm doing all the booking myself, and and management and stuff, all that. So
it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And you
people don't know how
you manage yourself, so you have to make sure you're on time and all of that stuff.
Yeah. So it's it's a lot, and making sure everybody's up to date on everything, and what time we need to be there, and what time we need to hit the road, and all that kind of stuff. It's it's busy. A lot of people talk to me, and they think I'm just at home, strumming a guitar all day and chilling, and I wish that was the case,
Right.
I really wish that was the case, but it's not, and it's doing things that are not fun, and not enjoyable, and I'm the other day I'm looking up different Airbnbs and hotel accommodations for this upcoming tour, and for a day we have we don't have accommodation for, and it's like, okay, we're in Mississippi, can we stay? Okay, and and try and find those things, and you know what I mean, or we had some van issues recently on tour, and getting all that worked on, and we're me and the drummer at O'Reilly's in the morning, you know what I mean, and like
had to add
taking
mechanic
things
to your list of
taking things apart,
wear.
and trying to get it on the road, and and trying to get to the next show. So I mean, it's a lot of things like that, and man, it's nonstop.
Yeah. You tell them your album title you dropped recently this year, right?
Yeah, so in April we put out the newest record. That one's called Spinning Heartache into Gold, and it's we're still promoting it, like doing tours stuff for it. So like I said, we just finished one leg of the tour, and we're doing another one, and then another one will be coming up after that, and then we just put a music video out for one of the songs, and
nice.
We're doing some more, I think, coming. So this one is kind of like a slower, like, rollout, I guess you could say, of the you know what I mean, putting out videos as the album's been out, and promoting it at all the shows and festivals and everything. So
you've got a website too, I'm sure you want to tell them about.
Julianprimeaux.com, and
spell that last name.
Primeaux, Primeaux.
There you go.
And Julian's Julian, by the way. Sometimes people want to put an E, but Julianprimeaux.com, and then the social stuff, Facebook, you can find Julian Primeaux Music, Instagram Julian Primeaux Music. We have a YouTube channel, and and we're on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, all that kind of stuff, Apple Music, whatever, all those things.
My neighbors heard your music yesterday. I turned it up really loud. I sit in the backyard and like, this is who I'm going to talk to tomorrow. Check him out. Yeah, that's cool. Good. It was really nice, man.
Yeah, man. Cool.
When you were talking earlier about, I guess we like cycled through so much, but genres and what was coming out of you, and you mentioned singer-songwriters. It's funny, I've got a guy that I interviewed recently, Chris Vincent, and he was coming out with an album, and he's talking to his manager about what they're going to release it under the umbrella of what genre. What are we calling this?
Yeah, right.
And he's like, do not call it blues. And that'd be the first thing you would think to call it, because of it's in that vein, do you know what I mean? But he didn't want to be boxed in like you were talking about.
Right.
So they just go with some more vague terms, I guess, like folk or roots.
Right.
Or Americana, which could be any number of things, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I mean, it kind of, it helps because, I mean, some people might be turned off by the idea that that's a blues album, and they're like, oh, well, I don't like blues, so I'm not going to listen to it. We just missed out on some shit that was in there that maybe wasn't even constituted as blues, you know, like maybe it was meant to be something else, you know. Yeah. And he plays a slide guitar, but he does a lot of picking, and it's interesting stuff. It's fast paced at times, and definitely genre bending, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's good to hear, and I wanted to kind of stress that for them, because it's important that they realize that you're not any one style specifically. And I think that's an advantage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's like, you know, one of the things I've learned over time, you know, and it's getting feedback from people, right? Like, you know, people come up after the shows or before the show. Sometimes they want to talk and, you know, and tell me things, or people message me stuff, and you know, and there's some people who, you know, they like the, let's say, bluesy guitar stuff, right, or something. But then there's just as many fans that, like, they could care less about all that, and they love the singing, and it's like, you know, singing, you know, like really like heartfelt ballads, you know, that are not bluesy, you know, and that's their thing, and that's what they come out to the shows for. And then, you know, there's other people that come out that, you know, I think it's really not even about the singing or the guitar stuff, and they tell me they do love all that stuff, but I think for them it's like the songs themselves, and the content, the content of the songs, you know, and the lyrics and stuff, and just like the art of it, and the emotion of it, and the way it makes them feel.
Sure.
And you know, and that's one of the things for us. And so, like, what I try to do, and this is even, you know, talking about even something like a blues festival or something like that, or we'd do, like, you know, it could be whatever, like a rock festival or a singer-songwriter festival or something. We're doing a singer-songwriter festival, like, later this year, for instance. And, like, you know, but when we do those things, even if it is something that is like, okay, this is called a blues festival, I still try to get a lot of that, like, singer-songwriter vibe and energy into it, and not just playing the standard.
Man, I wouldn't let it guide you in the least. I mean, look what Jazz Fest has become, you know?
Right.
You have, like, Rolling Stones headliner, like, what jazz songs are we talking about? I don't think it's as relevant anymore.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, like, and I understand, you know, trying to keep a vibe to a festival, but for me, it's like, you know, we have some songs, let's say, that they are bluesy, but they're also very, like, you know, dark and mysterious, and there's a lot of emotion, and, you know what I mean, like, the lyrics, you know, are more poetic, and it's, you know, it's different than, you know, maybe like the standard cliche blues line, you know.
Sure.
And it's like, and, you know, people come out and, you know, and they tell me that, man, you know, like, really struck by, like, the emotion in the show, and, like, we weren't expecting to get that at this type of a festival or this type of an event, you know, and, like, you know, and I love that, and that's what I like. I like having that extra, just, like, emotional resonance, you know what I mean, and, like, trying to just channel that, and, like, you know, always put all of my heart and, you know, and all my blood, sweat, and tears into it, and, like, really try to, you know, put all my emotion into every song that we're doing, you know, even if it's, you know, a balls to the wall rock song, you know what I mean? Like, I you know, I want people to know and hear that my heart is fully in it, you know?
That's the stuff that connections are made of, right? That's what makes things resonate with people.
Right. So I never try to phone it in, nothing like that, you know what I mean? And I keep myself in check on that. Like, you know, even for me, like, doing a rehearsal and there's nobody, you know, there's nobody there but the band, you know what I mean? Like, even then, I don't like to phone it in and just kind of half-ass it, you know?
Sure.
Like, you know, and even if I'm tired or I'm, you know, worn out, or I could be sick or whatever's going on, you know what I mean? Like, I like to give it my all, you know, and always give 110%, you know?
For sure, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.